The first time I saw her, she was sitting on the edge of the observation deck, the twin suns of Valterra, 9 casting long, golden shafts across the polished metal floor. Her armor, slick, black, and angular, caught the light, reflecting it in jagged, almost threatening patterns. I'd been warned about her. Not that I listened. Rumors whispered across the galaxy had painted her as untouchable, even merciless. Commander Lyra Vash of the Sovereign Legion, survivor of 5 battlefields that had left entire star systems scarred, and yet, somehow, she was said to be alone, quietly commanding from the fringes. I wasn't supposed to approach her. My assignment was simple: deliver the supply manifest to her flagship. Nothing personal, nothing dangerous. At least that's what my superior insisted. But when I stepped onto the deck, her violet eyes locked onto mine with a precision that froze the blood in my veins. Not with hostility, something far worse: calculation. "You're human," she said, voice calm, almost melodic, yet heavy with an authority that made my knees ache. "Explain why you're here." I swallowed. "Supply manifest for the Vash fleet, Commander. Signed by Admiral Karan." Her eyes flicked to the rolled holographic data in my hands. She didn't move, didn't blink for a long moment. I thought I could feel the weight of her judgment pressing into me, a gravity I had never experienced even in 0G. Finally, she spoke. "Follow me. And do not touch anything unless I say so." The corridors she led me through were an architectural marvel, sleek curves and sharp angles combined, illuminated by panels that hummed with quiet energy. I'd been on military ships before, but none like this. There was an elegance to her command, even in silence. And then it happened. The outer armor interface, the thing that all high-ranking officers in the Sovereign Legion wore, began to glow. I had been told the armor was untouchable, a shield that protected against everything from plasma blasts to psychic interference. And yet, she unlatched the chest plate while walking, piece by piece, until the black steel fell away. Beneath, her body was human-like, yes, but there was something alien in the rhythm of her muscles, in the way her skin seemed to shimmer faintly under the lights. I froze. No one was allowed to see that, I knew. No one. But she didn't flinch at my gaze. Instead, she continued walking, moving past the security doors through the bridge until she stopped by a viewport. The galaxy stretched endlessly beyond, stars blinking like distant eyes, and she finally spoke again. "You trust me to see this?" she asked. I suppose," I said, barely above a whisper. Truthfully, I had no idea what this meant. She let out a breath, and for the first time, I saw vulnerability, not weakness, but the weight of solitude. "I trust only one human," she admitted. "Even the Legion doesn't see this side of me." I wanted to ask who that was. I wanted to ask why me, but I didn't. I just nodded, feeling absurdly like I had crossed some cosmic threshold I was not meant to enter. It wasn't long before things became dangerous. Weeks earlier, Valterra 9 had been under siege from the Zytherians, a species whose weapons could pierce through planetary shields like paper. The Sovereign Legion had held the line, but intelligence indicated the Zytherians were regrouping for a full-scale assault. Commander Vash needed strategists, engineers, and, apparently, humans who could think outside the rigid doctrines of her officers. I became one of those humans. Her trust was strange, almost terrifying. Every day, she allowed me closer to her operations, to the planning chambers, and even to her private quarters, always observing, always calculating, always asking questions in a way that felt like both a test and a confession. And every day, she removed a piece of her armor, not just physically but metaphorically. She shared memories of battlefields scarred with firestorms, of siblings lost to the Zytherians, of the burden of command that weighed her down like a leaden cloak. It was during one of these sessions, late in the artificial night of the flagship, that I realized how fragile she was beneath her reputation. She spoke of the moment she had lost her first unit on a planetary mission, how she had had to make a choice between saving civilians or her soldiers. Her voice cracked slightly, and her fingers trembled as she absently traced a scar across her forearm. "You know why I trust you, don't you?" she asked suddenly, looking up. I shook my head. "Because you make mistakes," she said. Her lips quirked into the faintest smile. "And then you own them. You don't hide. You don't pretend to be perfect. That's a rare quality in humans, and in commanders." I wanted to deny it. I wanted to tell her that my life wasn't extraordinary, that I was just a mechanic pressed into logistics. But the truth was, her trust had given me purpose. It had given me courage. The Zytherians attacked sooner than expected. A fleet emerged from the dark side of the sector, sleek vessels bristling with weapons capable of tearing through the strongest shields. Commander Vash's flagship, the Obsidian Lance, moved into formation, and for the first time, I watched her in battle, not from a simulation, but real, brutal war. She didn't wear her armor. She moved with a grace that belied exhaustion, issuing orders, predicting enemy maneuvers before sensors even registered them. And yet, there were moments when she glanced at me, almost as if seeking affirmation that I still trusted her, that I still believed in her. Then it happened. A massive Zytherian cruiser broke through the outer defense line. Energy beams tore through smaller vessels like paper, and alarms blared across the Obsidian Lance. Commander Vash stood on the bridge, hands steady, eyes blazing.
"Human," she called.
"I need you on targeting. You'll coordinate with the secondary batteries." My heart pounded. I had never operated advanced weaponry before, never aimed at anything bigger than a transport drone. But she trusted me, and that trust made me focus. The battle was a blur. Energy bolts screamed across space, ships spun and collided, and still, she remained calm, issuing orders, adjusting tactics, revealing weaknesses in the Zytherian fleet I never would have noticed. And when a salvo threatened to breach our shields, she moved in front of me, using her own body as cover, not reckless, but calculated, precise. It was then I understood fully what her armor really meant. The black shell she wore in daily life wasn't just protection. It was a symbol, a wall she built to keep the galaxy, and perhaps herself, from seeing fear, doubt, and loneliness. And by removing it, she allowed herself to be human, to be vulnerable, to trust me. After what felt like an eternity, the battle ended. The Zytherians retreated, their fleet battered but not destroyed. Casualties were high, but the Obsidian Lance had survived. And on the observation deck, under the dim glow of the twin suns, she sat, finally allowing herself to breathe. "You see now why I trust you," she said softly. "I do," I replied. And I meant it. Not just because she had survived countless battles or because she had relied on me in the heart of war, but because she had shown me something rare in the galaxy, that beneath the armor, beneath the legend, was a soul capable of fear, of hope, and of connection. She nodded, eyes softening. "There's one more thing," she said. "I've never trusted anyone with this." She reached down and activated a holographic display, revealing a network of hidden planetary defenses, secret alliances, and intelligence files. All of this, the future of our systems, the strategies for the next decade, I am giving to you, human. Not because I have to, but because I choose to. I swallowed. I won't betray that trust. She allowed a faint smile, one that didn't need words. And in that moment, I realized something profound. Trust was not a reward. It was a responsibility, a bond stronger than any medal, more enduring than any fleet. And she had placed that responsibility in my hands. The weeks that followed were quieter, but no less intense. We trained together, shared insights, planned for contingencies. She no longer wore her armor in my presence, except in battle. And every time I looked at her, I saw not the Commander Lyra Vash of legend, but a human being with fears, hopes, and a capacity for trust that few would ever earn. Then one evening, as we watched a nebula bloom across the viewport in shades of violet and gold, she spoke again. "You know, most people would consider me untouchable," she said, voice almost shy. "But with you, I feel less alone. That is a gift I cannot give lightly." I reached out, my hand brushing hers. She flinched slightly, then held it. No words were needed. The gesture spoke of trust, of connection, and perhaps, in some small way, of something deeper than loyalty. The galaxy outside remained chaotic, filled with wars, alliances, and betrayals. But inside the walls of the Obsidian Lance, something rare had formed, a bridge between human and legend, between armor and vulnerability, between commander and the one human she trusted above all else. I didn't know what the future would bring. I didn't know if we would survive the next battle, or if the Zytherians would return stronger. But I knew this. She had shown me her true self, and in doing so, had changed my understanding of strength, of courage, and of trust. And when she finally stood, fully bare of armor except for the quiet confidence in her posture, I realized that some legends weren't built on fear or invincibility. They were built on the courage to trust, even when it made them vulnerable. And she had trusted me. For the first time, I understood that in the vast, unfeeling expanse of the galaxy, the rarest power wasn't firepower or strategy, or even speed. It was trust. And she had given me hers. And I would never forget it. The galaxy outside remained chaotic, filled with wars, alliances, and betrayals. But inside the walls of the Obsidian Lance, something rare had formed, a bridge between human and legend, between armor and vulnerability, between commander and the one human she trusted above all else. Days passed, and life aboard the flagship returned to its rhythm. Briefings, drills, and intelligence analysis filled our schedules, but there was a new undercurrent, an understanding that transcended rank or protocol. We were no longer just commander and subordinate. We were two individuals navigating the chaos of a galaxy that had no room for hesitation. One evening, after a particularly grueling training simulation, Lyra invited me to the observation deck again. The twin suns of Valterra, 9, were setting, turning the sky into a painting of deep purples and molten gold. She had her armor off completely, sitting cross-legged on the floor, her hands resting lightly on her knees. Her eyes met mine, calm yet intense, and I felt the weight of her trust once more. "I need to tell you something," she said quietly. "Something I've never told anyone, not even the Legion." I sat beside her, careful not to break the delicate space she had created. "I'm listening." She hesitated, then exhaled slowly. "I have lived my life behind this armor, believing that vulnerability was a weakness. But it isn't. It's a strength. The courage to show who you truly are, to trust another. That is power beyond any weapon or strategy." Her gaze held mine unwavering. "And I trust you completely." I felt a lump in my throat. No words seemed sufficient. I reached for her hand, and she let me hold it. For the first time, the distance between legend and human disappeared. There was no command, no hierarchy, just two beings, sharing a moment of quiet honesty amid the storm of the galaxy. Then the alarm blared. Red lights flooded the deck, and the sensors detected another incoming fleet. Not Zytherians this time, but rogue mercenaries aiming to exploit the post-battle chaos. Lyra stood immediately, her body moving instinctively even without armor. "We fight," she said simply, her voice steel and resolve. "And you'll be with me." I nodded, heart pounding, but this time without fear. Her trust had given me courage I didn't know I possessed. We ran through the corridors, joining the crew at their stations, the tension electric. The battle was chaotic, ships darting through space like fireflies, lasers streaking across the void. But now I wasn't just an observer. I was part of the defense, coordinating with the weapon systems, guiding Lyra's strategies, anticipating enemy maneuvers. At the heart of the battle, a massive mercenary dreadnought loomed, its shields nearly impenetrable. Lyra's eyes met mine across the tactical console. No words, just a look, a silent question of trust. I nodded, and she smiled faintly, the smallest curve of lips that carried the weight of her humanity. Together, we executed a risky maneuver, exploiting the ship's blind spot. Explosions lit the darkness, fire blooming across the mercenary hull. When the final ship was destroyed and the battle ended, the silence that followed was almost deafening. Crew members cheered, but Lyra and I stayed on the observation deck, watching the wreckage float like fallen stars. She leaned against me slightly, her head brushing my shoulder. "You've changed me," she said softly, voice barely above the hum of the ship. "Not because of what you did in the battle, but because you saw me. All of me." I swallowed, realizing how much I had been changed as well. "I only saw what you let me see," I said. "But I don't regret a second of it." For the first time, she laughed, not the calculated, commanding laugh of a legend, but a real, human laugh that shook off the tension of endless war. "Then perhaps there is hope," she murmured, eyes bright with unspoken understanding. Days later, Lyra called a private council, something unprecedented. All senior officers were present, yet they were silent witnesses as she spoke not as a commander, but as herself. She declared a new protocol for the fleet, emphasizing collaboration with humans and other allied species, advocating for transparency, trust, and the sharing of responsibility. Every word carried the weight of her experience, but also of her vulnerability, a strength she had learned to embrace. And then, finally, she turned to me. "There's no armor I wear that matters as much as this trust. You've earned it, human. And for that, I am grateful beyond words." I realized then that our bond was something more than duty or loyalty. It was the rarest thing in a galaxy built on fear and conflict, mutual respect, understanding, and the willingness to reveal the self beneath the armor. Years later, when stories of Commander Lyra Vash spread across the stars, they spoke of her victories, her strategic brilliance, and her indomitable will. But I knew the truth. The real legend wasn't in the battles she had won or the empires she had shaped. It was in the trust she had given, the courage she had shown in revealing her true self, and the human who had stood by her, not as a subordinate, but as a companion in the truest sense. In the quiet of the observation deck, long after battles had ended and stars had shifted across the sky, she would remove her armor and sit beside me. And I would watch her, and she would watch me. No words were needed, because we understood the unspoken truth, that the greatest victories weren't won with weapons, but with trust. And she had trusted me. And that trust was, in every way, eternal.